There's a moment. You've had it. I've had it. Everybody's had it. Maybe it happened when you were about to walk into a room and something stopped you. An invisible force, so to speak. Not a thought, not a reason. Something much older than that. Or maybe it was a person. Someone who looked fine on the surface, said all the right things, smiled at all the right times, and yet your body was already moving away from them before your mind caught up. We've been taught to dismiss that signal, call it a gut feeling, chalk it up to anxiety, irrationality, superstition, and move on. But what if, folks, that signal isn't noise? What if it's data? What if the body has been running a truth detection system this entire time and nobody has told us how to read it? This is Roby with the Manufactured Mind, and today we're going deep into instinct, what it is, what it isn't, and what science is starting to confirm about it, and why 2.5 years of serious inner work during recovery has taught me to stop second-guessing the one system that's never lied to me. So let's get into it. So we need to start by doing something that almost nobody does. Make a clean distinction between two things that get lumped together constantly. Gut feeling and instinct. People use them interchangeably, and I'm here to argue that they are not the same thing, not even close. Because from my experience, a gut feeling is reactive. It's anxiety adjacent. It's the nervous system throwing up flares because it doesn't like uncertainty. It's rooted in fear, past conditioning, sometimes trauma, and it can be wrong. It can be manipulated. It can steer you directly into walls. Now, instinct is something quieter, deeper. It doesn't shout. It doesn't panic. It doesn't arrive with a racing heart and a spiral of what-ifs. It arrives like a knowing, a stillness underneath the noise, a signal that doesn't ask permission and doesn't need your logic to validate it. Think about animals. A dog sensing a storm before a single cloud appears. A bird changing its migration pattern before any instrument picks up the shift. We don't call that anxiety. We call it instinct. We've just been conditioned to believe that humans, with all of our cognitive sophistication, have somehow lost access to that very same system. I'd argue the opposite. I'd argue that we have not lost it. We've just been taught to stop listening to it. And I've had this tested against my own life more times than I care to count. For instance, when I was weighing in joining the Marine Corps, there were two signals running simultaneously. One was anxiety, loud, fear-based, telling me all the ways it could go wrong. The other was something underneath that. It was something underneath all of that, a deep pull, a directional knowing. I followed the second one, and even though I came home injured, even though the path wasn't what I expected, I don't have a single regret. The instinct was right. Contrast with that, a tribal organization I joined, a nonprofit, more recently. My instinct flagged it from day one. I ignored it. I rationalized it. I gave the benefit of the doubt. I let my desire to belong override the signal. Within 6 months, I was out. The thing my instinct tried to tell me on day one took 6 months of lived experience to confirm. That's the cost of not listening. Not always, but often enough. The question I've spent years trying to answer is this: how do you tell the difference in real time before the outcome confirms it? And the answer for me has been this. The gut feeling has urgency. It has heat. It comes with a story attached, a narrative of threat. Instinct has none of that. It's almost cold. It's almost quiet. It just is. And so here's where the science stops being metaphor and starts being anatomy, is the enteric nervous system, the second brain. Inside your gut, from the esophagus to the rectum, there is a network of over 100 million neurons, not figuratively, quite literally. This is called the enteric nervous system, and Johns Hopkins medicine refers to it as your second brain. This system communicates bidirectionally with your central nervous system through the vagus nerve. Information doesn't just travel top down from brain to gut, it travels bottom up. The gut sends signals to the brain constantly. Research published in Nature Reviews Neuroscience found that the gut-brain communication system has multiple effects on affect, motivation, and higher cognitive function, including intuitive decision-making. That's not a self-help blogger saying that. That's published neuroscience in one of the most cited journals in the field. And Antonio Damasio and the somatic marker hypotheses. So in 1994, neurologist Antonio Damasio published a book called Descartes' Error that turned rational choice theory on its head. His argument: emotion is not the enemy of reason, it is a required component of it. And through decades of studying patients with damage to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, a region of the brain that integrates emotion and decision-making, Damasio found something remarkable. These patients were intellectually intact. Their IQ was fine. Their memory was fine. Their language was fine. But they couldn't make decisions. Simple, everyday decisions paralyzed them, and they made catastrophically bad choices in their personal and financial lives. Wow. That hits a little too close to home. So, folks, I have an arachnoid cyst. It's benign, and it's on my brain, and it's pushing on my prefrontal cortex. And they told me that it was pushing on the memory and decision-making part of my brain. Mind you, I struggle on a day-to-day basis with even making the decision to go and leave the house. It's hard for me to walk out of the freaking door sometimes. Like I feel an invisible restraint almost pushing against me, preventing me from walking outside. Not all the time, but at least once a week. And finances, I've struggled with that as well. I've gotten a lot better with it, but I've definitely struggled with that in the past. So this is interesting to find out. So why do these people struggle like this? Well, because they had lost access to what Damasio called somatic markers, bodily signals, both conscious and unconscious, that the brain uses to rapidly flag options as dangerous or advantageous based on past experience. In other words, without the body signal, the brain couldn't navigate reality effectively. And I've been working on overcoming this myself. I've started listening to the body, paying attention to the body, and I realized that in most cases, if I would just get up and go outside and do what I wanted to do off Jump Street, instead of sitting there letting it fester and dwell in my mind, because that's what ends up leading me to feeling paralyzed, so to speak. If I had just gone and done what I wanted to do immediately, not thought about it, it would have gotten done. There's also an important nuance here. Some researchers have critiqued the somatic marker hypotheses for overstating its case, and the evidence base is still being built. But the core finding that bodily emotional signals play a documented role in decision making is robust. Oh man. Whew, sorry, I had to yawn. Wow. So the neural signature of intuition versus anxiety. Here's something that should stop people cold. Intuition and anxiety don't just feel different. They operate through overlapping but distinct neural architecture. Both involve the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, and the insula, which integrates bodily sensation with emotional and cognitive processing. But anxiety is characterized by what researchers call predictive coding gone into overdrive. Your amygdala, primed by past threat and stress, starts flagging neutral stimuli as dangerous. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. The signal is loud, urgent, and tied to a fear narrative. Intuition, as studied through fMRI, shows a different pattern. It activates the orbitofrontal cortex, a region involved in rapid, value-based assessment, along with the insula and amygdala, but without the hypoarousal signature of anxiety. The signal is fast, quiet, and pattern-based rather than threat-based. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory also adds a critical piece here. Porges identified what he calls neuroception, the nervous system's subconscious scanning of the environment for cues of safety or danger through tone of voice, facial expression, and even silence. This happens below conscious awareness, before the thinking brain gets involved. Porges' framework provides a biological basis for what many people experience as a sense about a person or place that they can't fully articulate. The body was reading the room. The conscious mind just hadn't been told yet. And that sense about a person or a place, that's instinct. And then we have Peter Levine. So Peter Levine spent over 50 years developing somatic experiencing, a body-based approach to healing trauma. His foundational insight was this: trauma is not just psychological. It is physiological. It lives in the body, and the body's natural healing intelligence, when unblocked, can discharge it. What's relevant for our conversation today is what Levine observed about the relationship between somatic awareness and instinct. In healthy people, he identified 3 symptoms working in integrated concert: instinct, emotion, and intellect. When trauma disrupts this integration, particularly when it locks the nervous system in chronic fight, flight, freeze, the somatic signal becomes corrupted. The body's truth-telling capacity gets overwhelmed by survival noise. And I've experienced this. But my instinct has always turned out to be right. And because I never listened to it, and it turns out to be right. And I'm like, damn, I should have listened to my instinct. And I finally started listening to it. And when I did start listening to it, it's still proven to be right. I've just done a very rigorous self-assessment and observation to really pick up on the distinction between the instinct and the gut feeling, so to speak. So when trauma disrupts this integration, particularly... Oh, nope, sorry, I already said that. This has a direct implication. Healing that disruption, which is what serious recovery work does, doesn't just restore emotional function. It restores signal clarity. It recalibrates the body's ability to communicate accurate information. And a 2017 randomized controlled trial found that somatic experiencing significantly reduced PTSD symptoms, with participants also reporting improvements in overall quality of life and mental health outcomes. So now I want to talk to you about what I've actually lived, because the science gives us the framework, but experience gives us the proof of concept. 2.5 years ago, I made a decision to get serious about my recovery. And what I didn't expect was that recovery wasn't just going to change what I put in my body. It was going to change how I heard my own body. Early in recovery, the signals are chaos. Everything feels like a threat. Everything that used to regulate the nervous system is gone. And the body doesn't know what to do with the silence. For a long time, I could not tell the difference between the anxiety, the quote-unquote gut feeling, and the instinct, because both were screaming at the same volume. But as I went deeper into the work, the therapy, the meditation, the daily discipline of actually sitting with what the body was saying instead of drowning it out, something started to separate. Like two radio frequencies, so to speak, that used to overlap started to essentially pull apart. I started noticing that, anxiety actually had a texture. It had heat. It had a story running underneath it, a what-if loop, an imagined future catastrophe. Instinct was very different. It arrived with a story. It didn't need to explain itself. It was just there, like a door closing, like a direction becoming clear. Now, I'm not saying it's infallible. I'm not saying I've achieved some perfect signal clarity. I'm saying I've done enough reps now, tracked enough outcomes, paid enough attention to my own internal experience that I trust this system in a way that I never have and never could before. And every time I've overridden it, every time that I've let the logic or the desire or somebody else's narrative override what the body already knew, I've paid for it without exception. And now, I want to be honest with you, because this show doesn't do half-truths, and if I'm making a case this strong, I owe you the strongest version of the pushback as well. And so the pushback is this: human memory is reconstructive, not archival. We don't remember what happened, we remember a version of what happened. That's been filtered through everything we believe now. Psychologists call this confirmation bias and survivorship bias. We vividly remember the times our instinct was right. We quietly forget or reframe the times it wasn't. That's a real phenomenon. It's documented, and I take it seriously. There's also the question of trauma. Trauma rewires the threat detection system. In some people, the signal that feels like instinct is actually a trauma response, the nervous system pattern matching to old danger, even when none exists. And a person who grew up in chaos might feel that quiet calm as a red flag, because quiet was always the prelude to something bad. That's not instinct, that's imprinting. So here's my honest caveat. The framework I'm describing isn't a universal given. It's a calibrated skill, and the calibration happens through exactly the kind of deep inner work that most people never do. And without that work, the signal can absolutely be corrupted. So what I'm claiming is not that instinct is infallible. What I'm claiming is that in a nervous system that has been deliberately healed, recalibrated, rewired, and listened to with discipline over time, the signal becomes increasingly reliable, and that's a testable proposition. Now, I will say that I don't know that I fully trust the whole we don't remember what happened, we remember a version of what happened, because my memory is rather impeccable. I remember, I have memories from when I was 2 years old. I remember being locked in the vehicle on accident, and the cop having to come to get me out with the Slim Jim down the window. I remember falling off some monkey bars across from the house at the park I was at with my dad. I remember when my dad taught me how to tie my shoes. I remember when I first learned to swim. I remember a lot of stuff. that most people don't. And I don't know why, but I just do. So, but I do know that supposedly only 50% of our memory is actually false, and only 50% of it is true. So, I mean, that kind of backs up what they're saying here in the pushback, but I don't know, man. And I do know that if you recall events in your life and you are constantly recalling those events, the story can often change over time with minor little detail changes, and then eventually you end up with a story that isn't even close to the truth, and you don't even realize it. Now, I do know that can happen, but I'm conscious of that. And I think that's the biggest part, is being conscious of these things. So we live in a culture that has systematically, devalued internal knowledge in favor of external authority. We've been taught that what counts as real is what can be measured, credentialed, cited, and peer-reviewed. And I'm not saying those things don't matter. You know, this whole episode has been built on peer-reviewed science. Evidence does matter. But there is a kind of knowledge that lives in the body that has been accumulating since before you could speak. A pattern recognition system, something I am highly attuned to, that has been running every second of your life. A signal that predates language, predates reason, predates every institution that ever told you what to think. The question isn't whether that system exists. The science is increasingly clear that it does. The question is, folks, are you quiet enough to hear it? Because the noise is very loud, and it always has been. The world benefits from you not hearing it, from you outsourcing your truth to someone else's agenda. And 2.5 years ago, I started the work of getting quiet. That's when I started recovery from 8 years of severe polysubstance abuse. Severe polysubstance abuse. And the single most disorienting and clarifying thing that happened wasn't a book I read or a therapy session I sat through, though those have mattered very much so. It was the moment I realized my body had been trying to tell me things for decades that I had been trained to ignore. I'm done. I'm not ignoring it anymore, and neither should you. You really should sit with yourself in silence. Listen to your body, folks. Your body is screaming at you every day. Your body speaks to you when you eat unhealthy foods. Your body speaks to you when you drink some sugar-filled can of soda. Your body reacts in some way. For instance, say when you drink a soda, the carbonation, it causes you to burp. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's just an example of like how the body could speak to you from drinking a soda. It's causing you to burp. It really takes focus. And once you pick up on that first signal that your body is screaming at you, and it proves to be true, that's when the gates fully open, and you really start recognizing that pattern more and more, and you really start hearing the body more and more. You know, when I first did drugs, okay, here's an example. When I first got injured in the Marine Corps and I went to a doctor, they told me what was going on. I had a disc blown out in my back, in my L4, L5. I ended up having to get surgery and all this other shit, which is why I ended up getting pushed out of the Marine Corps with an honorable discharge for medical reasons. But when I first went to the doc, he gave me the option of whether I wanted him to give me Vicodin. And of course, my instincts were screaming at me, no, 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 no. But the back pain was screaming at me, saying, yes, take it, take it, take it. And rather than me listening to my instinct, I listened to the pain. Because it was quick and easy. And that's also a problem. You know, if we take the quick and easy route, it ends up biting us in the ass in many cases. And that's exactly what happened. So if I had listened to my instinct, knowing that I had had issues with pills before I joined the Marine Corps, mind you, I had like messed around with some pills for a few months, well, probably about like half a year. But I had gotten hooked on them in that time. And so I knew that I was taking a huge risk in accepting this medication from this doctor. But I just wanted to be pain-free. And now I look back and I realize that the pain medicine, after taking it for so long, it ends up making you hurt worse than you already do. So there's no point in even taking it for any longer than a week. And yet I was getting prescribed to take this shit every single day. It got up to the point of 4 oxys, 10 milligrams a day, and 2 30-milligram morphines a day for 2 years or so, like 2.5 years. And had I had listened to my instinct from the get-go, I wouldn't have had to deal with all of that. I wouldn't have had to deal with the 8 years of polysubstance abuse after I got out of the Marine Corps. Because I got hooked on the pain medication I was being prescribed and then cut off from it cold turkey because I failed a urine test for marijuana at the doctor's office. I was out of the Marines at this point. But that's why the doctor cut me off of the medication. Straight cold turkey. 1 failed urine test for weed. And the reason I was smoking it was because of what I said a minute ago. The pain medication had gotten to the point to where it was making me hurt worse than it was helping. And it just went from there, folks. I mean, it got bad. Really bad. And the whole time, I was telling myself, oh, I can quit anytime I want to. But deep down, my instinct was telling me, bullshit. You need to stop now, or else you're gonna fucking regret this. You're gonna be hurting. You're gonna be hurting in so many ways if you don't stop now. And yet I persisted in going. Keep it on, keep it on. The whole time, all 8 years. That was in the back of my mind, my instinct. And I just chose to ignore it and feed the addiction. So when you get that feeling, that deep knowing feeling, but without the anxiety and all of that jazz, I encourage you to listen to your body. Or listen to the instinct. but really think about it. Like, you have to really reflect on it. But anyways, that's going to do it for today, folks. I appreciate you being here. If this hits something in you, share it, please. Leave a review. And as always, the truth doesn't need your permission. It just needs your attention. So, pay attention, folks. Pay attention to your body. Listen. Take care of yourself. Take care of the gut. Take care of the brain. And you'll get there. I do believe that instinct is the internal truth teller. I really do. So, having said, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And until next time, chin up, chest out, walk tall, and stay frosty. It's Roby with the Manufactured Mind. Peace out.